Welcome, everyone, to the Gears of War Judgment World Premiere Live event. I'm Larry Herb, Xbox Live's Major Nelson, with Xbox Live's Tina Summerford.
That's right, we are live, and Gears of War Judgment was announced nearly a year ago at E3 2012. We were there. Now, I know quite a bit already, like the testimony-based single-player campaign and the new Locust versus COG competitive multiplayer mode, Overrun, but there's still a few choice secrets lurking in Judgment's shadows. So, Larry, tonight we're going to pull back the curtain, answer a whole lot of your questions, and unveil a few very, very exciting surprises for the Gears faithful.
All right, now we have two major world premiere reveals in store for you tonight. We'll also be chatting live with senior producers Chris Wynn and Alan Van Slyke from Epic Games right here in studio.
Yes.
Now, if you're watching this live at home, be sure to post your questions on Twitter using the hashtag GearsJudgment. We'll be picking your questions from the hashtag to ask live throughout the show. Plus, we'll be taking your tweets throughout the show, putting them up on screen, so be sure to share your reactions to the game as well as tonight's reveals.
Wow, super community-driven show for you guys.
Plug right in.
Now, also, if you are watching live, don't forget you still have roughly 15 minutes to enter for your chance to win a custom Gears of War Judgment console. Now, you cannot buy this in the store, correct?
Absolutely not.
And we're also going to give away some copies of the game, which will be available at launch time.
Now, listen, you can find all the details on how to enter right now at my blog at majornelson.com.
Yes.
Now, Tina, I want to ask you, you had some time down in North Carolina, right at Epic Games where they make the game.
Yes.
How'd that go?
It was great. It was a great trip. I spent about 4 days, had a chance to talk to Alan and Chris, that you're going to be taking their live Q&A a little bit later in the show.
Yep.
But I also got a chance to sit down with Chris Perna. Now, he's the art director. He's been there since the very, very beginning. So not only did he do Judgment, the whole franchise is really his vision. So that was a great conversation, which you'll also get to see later on the show.
And I heard you also spent some time.
Are you about to call me out?
Yes, I am. My understanding that you spent some time in the playtest lab.
I did, and
How'd that go?
I got reamed. I just, as honest as I could be, I got killed over and over for hours and hours. But I had a great time doing it, and they were the men and women that made the game, so I really didn't have a shot at it. But the whole trip was really about survival and aftermath. So really, without further ado, here is our very first world premiere this evening, the unlockable bonus campaign mode, Aftermath.
The easiest way to describe what the Aftermath campaign is, in the context of Gears of War 3, near the end of the game, Marcus and Dom go off in one direction toward Azura, and they send Baird and Cole off to find some supplies.
All right, Baird, Cole, you go find reinforcements. We need transport, weapons, and anyone who can fight.
It just so happened that they went to Havel Bay to go find those reinforcements, and so we had all the pieces kind of put together, and it was like, you know, let's go tell that particular story from Gears 3. You run into Paddock, who's one of the new characters in Judgment, because he's still hanging around that city.
Only COG soldiers are this noisy. Paddock?
That sidearm can go back where you found it.
I think it's really neat to see Paddock inserted into this point in the timeline of the Gears story. It takes you back, and I think it's a point in time that everyone's going to be excited to see. Ultimately, it's a reward for fans.
Paddock is a Groznian guy. He's kind of the grizzled veteran, former UIR soldier, right? So yeah, he was opposing the COG in the Pendulum Wars, and then when the treaty was signed, right around the time of Emergence Day, he came over to fight for the COG.
Again, it's just a continuation of the story, and just peeling back the onion layer just a little bit deeper to see what else happened during that traumatic time.
We built Aftermath in as an unlock. And so to unlock it, you earn stars. When you play through the main Judgment campaign, you're scored every section that you play through. We have a series of 3 stars that you can earn. You earn those stars by getting ribbons, headshots and executions and those kinds of things. Also just by playing through the mission. If you take a declassified mission, that will boost your stars.
The declassification system changes the way that you play. It's an optional system that you can choose that'll actually add challenge and make it even more intense than it previously was. And also changes the testimony and changes the way that the story is told.
The dust gunk things up pretty good, and the grubs were going in for close kills. Basically,
the very core, the very foundation of what we're trying to do in Judgment is all built on intensity. What led up to that is we had a lot of feelings that games get a little bit too easy these days, right? It's more about the experience as opposed to the challenge. To make it more intense, there's some specific things that we did. One of those is the smart spawn system, and so this was a whole thing that we engineered so that when you get into a battle, when you come into an encounter, what you face will be different every single time.
You might play through once and get, tickers and maulers as you kind of lay back, and then you play through again and you push forward, and now you have wretches and different enemies flanking you. So lots of intensity happening in this game.
Systems like the Smart Spawn system are really cool for us as designers. I mean, yes, it's a challenge because it forces us to think in a different way. In the past, we could always say, okay, X, Y, Z is going to happen, and then when this ticker explodes, then the door is going to open, and a boomer's going to walk out, and we can script that experience. So it forces us to rethink a lot of the combat scenarios. In a way, I really like that because it gave us the ability to put more story and more context into the environments and into the world itself, which really helps bring the universe to life a lot more. And I think that's a much better story than anyone we could ever tell, because it's a story that the player themselves gets to tell and experience.
For us, it's a process of evolution. We don't want to just give the same experience over and over again, because that's really an injustice to the fans. And we want to make sure that we're delivering something that's progressing, not just both from a story standpoint, but from a franchise standpoint, but also from a gameplay standpoint.
We are joined by Chris Wynn and Alan Van Slyke, senior producers for Gears of War Judgment at Epic Games. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Got to tell you, that looked fantastic. Now, we just saw the world premiere of Aftermath, but let's take a step back. I want you to tell us about the main campaign, who's Kilo Squad, and what is their mission? Alan, you want to take that?
Yeah, so Kilo Squad, a couple of characters you already know, familiar to the Gears franchise. Barrett and Cole. These are the characters that, the Gears fans said, we want to hear more about these guys, and so let's explore more about them. And then the squad is rounded out with 2 new characters. We have Garen Paddock, who's a former grizzled UIR veteran, been in the trenches, but came over to help the COG fight the Locust after Emergency. And then we have Sophia Hendrick, who's kind of a fresh-faced Onyx Guard cadet graduate, but hasn't seen any battle yet.
Any real action?
Absolutely.
Great. Now we've got some announcements coming up. Chris, tell us about some of the announcements that you guys have made recently.
Yeah, it's really exciting these days. When you make a game, you finish it up, you get it in the box and out to stores, and you continue to develop. We release content after the fact, and so we announced just last week we did a deal with Maxim Magazine to be able to bring 2 free maps to our fans. Mm-hmm. And then including in that, we actually adding back execution modes. This is a fan favorite mode. They really asked for it to come back in Judgment, so we were able to do that, partner with Maxim, and bring that to people pretty early on. And then we also announced the details of our DLC plan. So we're going to add 6 new maps and even 2 new additional modes, and then that's all wrapped up in a season pass, so you can get a discount on the whole thing.
So wait a minute, I get my season pass, I get access to all the content, I get a discount, and I get double XP?
You do, yeah, you get double XP forever.
Right.
So as long as you play in those VIP playlists, you're going to get double XP.
Right.
You also get the content early. You're going to get it before everyone else, which I think is really cool. And then, of course, we added in some skins and characters that you'll get just by being a VIP.
There's a lot going on there. All right, we're going to go, what we're going to do right now, the community has just voted on the gameplay they next want to see. We're doing this live. This is live television. We're kind of going by the seat of our pants. What you have chosen on Twitter is Domination. So Chris, Alan, let's bring up Domination here in the studio. We've got some gameplay here, and I want you to talk us through what we're seeing. Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah, Domination is a brand new mode we have in multiplayer, and so this is kind of an evolution of King of the Hill. You have 3 rings that are static on the map. These don't move around like they did in King of the Hill. And then your team's goal is to go capture those rings, and while you're holding them, you earn points, which you can see up there in the upper left-hand side of the screen. And the first team to the score threshold will win the match. And so what you have is it's a bit more competitive than what we had in the past. And we have these really close matches when we play tested in the labs back at Epic. You always know, by having those rings static on the map, and you know where ring A is, ring B is, ring C is, you always know where the action is, you always know where the fight is. And I think that's really one of the beautiful aspects of this mode. You always know where to go to get into the battle.
Well, I noticed that Domination is that, you talked about where to go is in the battle, but it's a choke point. Everyone's being brought there, so you're going to get action on the way there, and then once you're there, it's nonstop, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, that we've added to all of our multiplayer modes is this new vertical nature to the gameplay. So yeah, there's choke points, but it's no longer just a flat plain choke point. Now people can run upstairs, drop down, and flank you and surprise you. And so there's this whole new nature of strategy to the maps by adding this vertical nature to them.
Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned playtesting earlier. How important is playtesting to a mode like this?
It's massively important. I mean, you have to get the balance right. And so, particular to Domination, when we playtest, a lot of it is the location of those rings.
Right.
We want to make sure that the battle is not only fair between the 2 teams, but they're in the right locations where you set up really good fights. So for example, this room here, you have 3 entry points. And so when you have one team defending in the middle, you have to kind of make sure you're watching all those entry points.
And you've got some pipes you can duck behind.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
you take cover, of course, and find some really good places to kind of bunker down and defend, which is really important.
Now, so you mentioned there's 3 rings. How does the gameplay progress in terms of the balance, and do I get one, do I move to the other? Tell me a little bit about that dynamic.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy involved in how you do that. So typically, there's one ring that's kind of near each team's spawn points, and so those are more easily captured, and then there's one that's kind of more in the middle, and then there's a lot more contention for that. So there's a lot of strategy and communication that has to happen to decide how you can essentially hold 2 or more of the 3 at all times so that you're accruing points faster than the other team.
Yeah, and I think one thing that, so we just saw him jump out of a window there, and that was something that Alan was referring to earlier, is this new verticality that we have in our maps. And we also have, a bit new approach to level design, which really favors a mode like this. It's a much more circular in terms of its movement, and so you find it's a lot easier to move around as a team and find those choke points and find those battle areas.
Now, I've had the chance to play this game, but one of the things I noticed right off was you kind of did some things with the weapons and the weapon switching. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we optimized the control scheme actually in both multiplayer and the primary campaign. So now Y is a quick weapon swap, primary, secondary, just hit Y, boom, boom, switch back and forth. It really sped up the gameplay. And we've also gotten rid of all the D-pad functionality, moved the grenades to the left bumper. So now you can tap it, quick grenade throw while you're on the run.
But I can still hold it down and get the angle.
Yeah, if you want that traditional trajectory, the aiming arc, you can hold on to it, and you can always put it away too. If you pulled it out and you want to put it away, no problem.
Great, that sounds great. Now listen, we're going to switch gears, so to speak, and go behind the scenes of the art direction in the Gears of War franchise. Tina caught up with art director Chris Perna to discuss the franchise, the visual identity, and how Judgment fits in.
Chris, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to see differently in the art direction from Judgment as we've seen in Gears 1, 2, and 3.
I think for Judgment, we go back to some of the darker Gears. We worked hard to kind of capture the tone of the original, make it a little more moody, things like that. The players, as they move through the environments, they should see kind of mini stories as they move throughout. Something happened in this environment. We kind of wanted to make it a place rather than just a blank environment that you have a battle in, right? There's handprints on the wall and blood trails that lead somewhere. What is this place? What happened here before you got there? Those type of things.
The characters, Baird and Cole, you got to go back and make them younger. What was that process like? Was that fun?
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. We iterated on those designs for a while. Some of them came easy, some of them were harder. Baird, of course, was a lieutenant before he got bumped down to private, and it was natural for us to kind of take him and clean him up. We upgraded his armor. He's got officer insignia on his armor and things like that. Cole was the same. We took Cole. We said, what would Cole look like during the thrash ball days, right? Because he's younger and it's almost a thrash ball. So he's more athletic. He's leaner. His face is younger. He's got more hair. You know, stuff like that. It was kind of fun to evolve those guys. And you know, we wanted this cool like Hulk out kind of locust. And the Rager was fun. You know, he's like this little wimpy, skinny guy that comes out with a weapon and you kind of fire him. And as he takes damage, he just gets pissed off and he just starts to flush red and spikes come out and he gets nuts. And it was great to develop that character.
And beyond just the artistic stuff, but there's also all the technical aspects of it. The engines change, different animators come in and out. How do you work as an artist with the tech? And does it evolve with the engine?
Right, so it kind of evolves hand in hand. We take a look at what we want to do for the game, and we say, hey, you know, we want a darker, moodier game. What can we do with lighting? What can we do with gloom to give it maybe a more dreamy feel to some aspects of it? We want a lot of fire. How can we enhance flame lighting and flickering lights and things like that? We push the tech to make the art look better. How can we evolve our characters? What can we do to make them look better, make the skins higher resolution, make the shaders better, things like that, that just add to a more robust and immersive experience for the player.
So sort of being in charge of the art direction, I feel like it would be difficult because an artist, I'm sure you want to be hands-on with stuff because you know what you have up here, but how hard is it to pass that on to...
Yeah, it's really hard.
Like...
Yeah, it's super hard. I'm not only, you know, am I high-level art direction now, but it's I'm a control freak to a certain extent, right? I like what I like, and it's frustrating sometimes for the guys, and sometimes I don't know what I want, right? I mean, an art director doesn't necessarily have all the answers. So sometimes, you know, I get a bad rap, I'm sure, and people are like, what are you doing? You don't know what you're doing, and stuff, but it just takes a while to try and you know, craft that stuff and mold it into something, make something from nothing, basically.
You've been here since the beginning of the franchise, so you were the big influence in what these characters, these larger-than-life characters would be. Where did you get that from? That was, you know, space barbarians, right? It was, you know, the hardcore kind of Conan and things like that. I was really into that stuff. And it just kind of happened. We were like, hey, let's get these huge dudes and these big creatures, but we'll give them guns instead of swords, and we'll see what happens, you know? And it worked out well. Are there specific design principles that you hand down to them? Like, look, the characters, the weapons, everything has to fall within these design principles? You know, we set up style guides. The overall description was the world is heavy. Gears is a heavy and brutal game. So everything we put on the characters was meant to convey that weight in the world. We had shoulder pads that flopped around. When they hit cover, they grunt and they slam into it and dust flies out. Stuff like that. Because it's the emotion of those guys. How hard is it to get the emotion across? That's really hard. You know, an inanimate character, to get that emotion. In some aspects we did it well, some we didn't. And it all comes down to lighting and mood and facial animation and things like that. And we're getting better at it.
Chris Perna, director of art for the entire Epics, for the entire Gears of War series. Wow, that man has really got his fingerprints all over it. What's it like to work with him?
Yeah, he really does have his fingerprints and his influence on the whole series. I was watching the Twitter feed at the bottom of the monitor there as it was going on, and someone said, you know, he's one of the best in the business, and in my opinion, he is the best in the business. I mean, he defines what an art director is and really creates just a beautiful game.
You know, it's really great to work with him and his entire team, and kind of, you know, he sets the bar high and it's infectious. And so it's really been a pleasure to work with him. But we also have to call out, you know, PCF. We're going for this new, you know, we've gone back before Gears of War 1 where everything is freshly destroyed and still on fire. So it's a really evolutionary visual ID for the franchise. And so it's, you know, Perna certainly has been instrumental in that, and PCF in collaboration as well. So it's been a great...
lot going on there. You mentioned Twitter. What do you say we go to Twitter now? We're going to turn the show over to you, the community. We've been firing off questions for both on the Gears Judgment hashtag. If you have a question, you just need to use that hashtag. Why don't we bring up the first question right now? We'll get right to it. So with the success of the franchise, did you find it difficult creating a story or a prequel that could hold its own? From 00 Sleven. Guys?
I saw this come up while we were in the green room waiting for the show. You know, it really freed us to be able to go do a prequel. So, you know, I wouldn't say it was constraining or tough or difficult. We were really free to kind of go off and really try a lot of new things. And I think that's why Judgment does feel so fresh and does feel so new. We didn't hold ourselves in a box. Right. That maybe, you know, may have been the case with the original trilogy.
Great. Let's go on to question number 2. Let's bring that up right now on the screen. And we've got any new type of weapons. I mean, come on. That's what every Gears fan wants to know.
Yeah, absolutely. As you'd expect in new Gears of War product, lots of new characters, lots of new enemies, and lots of new weapons as well. So we have, we have a couple of accuracy-based weapons, some of which the Locusts have commandeered and modified to be their own. We have former UIR weapons, like the Bushka, which fires grenades, and we have a new stim gas and spotting grenades as well. So lots new to be had in the weapons department.
A lot of different stuff going on there. All right, next question. Let's bring that up on Twitter. Make sure you use the hashtag Gears Judgment. Is there any new multiplayer modes for Gears Judgment?
Yeah, we have Overrun mode is the most exciting new mode that we've added. It's a 5-on-5 attack defend class-based multiplayer mode, just super fun, way exciting. We just talked about Domination, that's brand new. Free-for-all mode, another brand new mode that we brought into Gears. It's just sort of deathmatch, everyone on their own. Yep. So a ton of new stuff in the multiplayer.
All right, we've got time for one more question. We'll be taking them later on in the show, but right now let's turn it back over onto the Gears Judgment hashtag. This question is, let's go ahead and bring that up here. Live TV, you never know what's going to happen.
It's coming, I can feel it.
All right, here it is. Why did you choose to have loadout systems for multiplayer? Great question.
It is a good question.
Yeah, I think it's all about flexibility. I mean, giving players. This is another big. One of the recurring themes of this project is cramming as much in as we could that the community desired. And this is certainly one of the things that immediately fell out of that we prototyped in early pre-production and knew was compelling is this wider variety of choices by offering a loadout system.
Great. Well, there you go. Thanks everyone for your questions. Keep them coming using the hashtag Gears Judgment on Twitter. We'll ask more community questions, your questions, later on in the show. Now, but for now, the live audience has selected, let's take a look here, Dynamic Defense to showcase next. And following that will be our final world premiere unveil of survival mode. So let's bring up Dynamic Defense right here in the studio for the folks at home. What are we seeing here? Here's the gameplay. Why don't you guys describe what we're taking a look at?
Yeah, so one of the big fan favorites from previous Gears of War titles was this idea of a defense scenario. And so what we've done is no longer, yes, part of the campaign you're charging through and conquering, but part of the campaign also, the Locusts are banging on the doors and they're encroaching upon you, and it's up for you to defend yourself. So we've added, as you can see, they're placing these new gameplay mechanic, which is a placeable sentry, and we have a couple of different types of sentries that have different ammunition types. And so it's up to you to defend your position within the map, and as the Locusts are coming upon you, to actually place the sentry, repair it, feed it as you need to, and ultimately survive so that you can continue.
You're gonna end up having to defend against multiple waves of Locusts. They're gonna kind of attack you in these waves, and you're gonna get a little break. You're gonna have time to kind of reset your defenses, think about your strategy in between those different waves, which really adds a nice element of strategy to it.
So this is kind of a tower defense type thing in the campaign where you stop down and kind of have to defend this. One thing that I noticed here is that as a player, you can pretty much set down the turrets anywhere. How does that affect the spawning system and the gameplay?
Yeah, that plays really well into our new dynamic spawn system, where if you push the sentries forward, the spawn system, it might react to you and spawn different types of enemies and flank you. And if you stay back and try to hunker down, they might come at you with a full frontal assault. So lots of variation and lots of strategy to be had with this new gameplay mechanic.
I want to talk a little bit about the turrets that we're seeing us lay down here. What are the different types of turrets we have?
Well, first of all, you'll notice you have to manage them. They run out of ammo.
Yeah,
so you need to go up and reload them. Yeah, you have to defend them because the Locusts will try to destroy them. But you have a couple of different types. So you have a Nasher type, which is a shotgun type of a sentry, so it's going to blast a little bit of a wider radius. And then you have the assault rifle sentry, which has a longer range. It'll give a good string of bullets on those enemies, but it'll run out of ammo a little bit quicker as well.
There you go. That's dynamic defense. All right, now we get to the answer of the most asked answer and question for the Gears of War Judgment, and I got to ask this: what did you guys do to my horde mode? What the hell happened? Survival is the answer, and we're going to have to take a look at this right now.
Gears has always been a cooperative game at its core. I mean, even our campaign was designed around cooperative play.
The #1 question I get is horde mode coming back? I get that every single day on Twitter, so I couldn't wait to actually talk about survival. The base goal of it is you are defending a series of objectives, playing as the cog, and you get to use the classes that we have in Overrun. So you have the engineer, you have the soldier, you have the scout, you have the medic. It's all about teamwork of what classes you're going to pick and use their special abilities to help survive 10 waves of enemies.
It shares the same kind of like gameplay mechanics as Overrun. And so there's 3 objectives, a primary, a secondary, and the third one being the generator, right, or the main objective. The battlefield is single directional, so you start defending the first one, and then when that falls, you fall back to the second one, and when that falls, you fall back to the final generator.
In Horde, we had 50 waves was the goal to survive, and so you might hear 10 waves and you go, wow, that's short. It is 10 crazy intense waves, and it's actually really hard to survive those 10 waves.
We actually had to bring in QA to ensure that we weren't going to ship a multiplayer game mode that it was impossible to beat on the highest difficulty level. Going all the way to hardcore or insane is definitely going to be a challenge for any co-op group who wants to try to tackle it.
I think the key abilities that you're going to see, if they're used well, give you a big, big advantage.
If you have an engineer who's repairing a fence and the locust forces are incoming, there's no way he's going to be able to repair that fence. And so you've got this moment where all of the classes are doing their thing, and it's all to protect the one engineer who is staying alive and not slowing down and not reloading and doing all this to save that one barrier that's protecting your objective.
It's different every time. You know, it's going to be a different experience every single time using the smart spawn system. As you're changing and trying to figure out the best way to beat it, the game is changing on you, and so you're constantly having to adapt and figure out, oh man, we thought this was going to work, but now that it's different because, you know, we're facing different enemies. How are we gonna team up and actually beat it this time?
There's a lot of just little ways that they can work together and complement each other that make that so much more valuable than, hey, everybody just runs in with their Lancer and shoots stuff. The 10 waves, the 3 objectives, it all kind of worked out to be kind of that magic sweet spot where the intensity level was just right, the length of experience was just right, the number of people involved was just right, and it just turns into this great experience.
Survival mode, that looked great. I got to talk to you about this, though. There's class-based going on here. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that makes it so interesting and so compelling is that you do have this class-based system. And so it really becomes about how are we going to team up? So how are you going to spread those classes around the team and really work together to use those unique abilities that each class has in order to try to survive those 10 waves that the locusts are launching at you. And that really is where the mode really gets interesting. It, you know, it kind of borrows that stuff from Overrun. It just adds that deep strategy you know, that Gears hasn't had before. And by introducing those classes, we've introduced a lot of strategy in there as well.
Tell me about some of your favorite memories as you guys were playtesting this.
Oh, lots of good memories, especially when you're playtesting against QA, because those guys are ridiculous. But you know, testing just different strategies, I think, are some of the most, you know, the fondest memories we have of, hey, let's load up on engineers and let's see what we can do to just keep the fortifications repaired and maybe have a medic or two to heal us, or hey, let's go in with the heavy guys and, you know, left and right, center. You know, it's all about how you're combining your classes and how you're defending the different routes, and there's just lots of great memories surrounding that.
Now, Chris, we're watching the Twitter feed here in the studio on the Gears Judgment hashtag. There's been some questions about taking the Horde mode of 50 and then dropping it down to 10 for survival mode. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. You know, so Horde was really about a marathon.
Right.
And one of the big themes for us in Judgment is around intensity, around making your palms sweat, about making your knuckles turn white because you're squeezing that controller. And so when we really focused in on survival, we really wanted to bring that intensity into the mode as well. And so you get, you know, it might last about an hour, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how well you do, but it is a crazy hour. I mean, you're just constantly, you really are squeezing that controller. You know, are we gonna make it, are we gonna make it? There's two guys left, we're almost done. And just that intensity, that sort of, you know, what you kind of get nervous in your belly, right?
Sure.
That kind of butterflies in your stomach that don't happen in a lot of other modes. And that's something we really wanted to bring, and I think that's why you see, you know, the mode tuned the way it was, because that's what we were going after.
Let's get back to the questions on Twitter using the Gears Judgment hashtag. We've seen survival. Now we're going to go to the questions. Let's bring up the first question right here in the studio. Will there be a season pass? It's always a great value. Can't wait to see kill some locust scum. Look forward to it, guys. You kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but why don't you go ahead and revisit it?
Kill the locust scum. I like it. Destroy them. Yeah, so our DLC plans will have 6 maps that we talked about that we'll release, plus 2 new modes. The season pass gives you a discount on that. You know, I don't know the exact points here off the top of my head. But then you also get all that extra stuff that we talked about. You get early access to all the content before anyone else gets it. You get the double XP.
Double XP.
And playing the VIP playlist all the time, which is awesome. awesome. Yep. And then you get the skins and the characters that no one else is going to get as well. So our season pass, you know, we really tried to take it to the next level. We really tried to up that value to our fans and try to give them a lot of what they wanted.
All right, back to Twitter using the hashtag Gears Judgment. Next question up: will the mature filters, gore, and language be returning? It was a great option to have in Gears.
Yeah, they're all in there. Yep, so absolutely they'll be back for you.
So that's people who don't really prefer the blood one. They can kind of dial it back a little bit.
Exactly.
You know, actually, you know, I kind of use that in multiplayer. I dial it because I can turn it off. That way, it's not on the lens. That's my pro tip. All right, let's go to the next question on Twitter. Gears Judgment. There you go. Is there a good game for new players to join the Gears of War universe? Or do you recommend playing the previous games? Because there's a lot of games. This is now the 4th game. So tell us where should we start at the beginning, or tell us about that?
This is a great place to start. So you don't have to worry about, you know, in Gears 1, 2, and 3, like starting in Gears 2, you don't know what happened. You don't have that. This is a standalone story. You don't need the background of what happened in the original trilogy. And then we have all this additional stuff. You know, we talked about Aftermath, which actually takes place during Gears of War 3. It's a slice of what the Gears 3 campaign was like. So you get the Judgment campaign, you unlock Aftermath, and then you get to play a little bit of Gears 3. And then on those initial shipments of the game, we have a code to download Gears of War 1 digitally.
For free.
So, yeah, for free.
So wait a minute. So when you buy the game, you're going to get basically Gears of 1 free to download.
Yeah, that's right. And so you get Judgment, you get 1, you get a slice of 3, you get like that whole, you know, stretch of what we've done in the franchise, which I think is awesome.
Lots of Gears. All right, back to Twitter. Hashtag Gears Judgment. Fire them our way. We will try to answer them. In your opinion, is Gears of War Judgment more difficult than the previous games?
No, I wouldn't say it's more difficult. It's definitely, there's definitely a sense of urgency and intensity that you haven't seen before in a Gears of War title. I mean, going back before Gears of War 1 to when the Locust invasion is fresh and new and that people are still trying to react to it, brings a sense of intensity and urgency that you haven't seen before.
Okay, I do think it's more strategic as well, you know, just based on the smart spawn system and having to look to see how you're going to get through there. You know, you do have to be a little bit more strategic than maybe you were in the past.
All right, let's go to another question on Twitter. Let's bring this one up. Is there going to be an awesome girl character to play? Green Fairy LV. Let's see. Green Fairy would like.
I'm guessing. Yes. Sophia Hendrick is a brand new character. She's a young rookie in the COG military. She's part of Kilo Squad, and so she makes an appearance in the game. One of my favorites is Alex Brand, who's a comic book character. And if you go pre-order the game at the Microsoft store, you get her as part of that incentive. And so, 2 really cool female characters right there. And of course, we have Anya returning as an incentive as well. So
there you go. All right, now we still have one more gameplay showcase to highlight. So this time we're going to take a look at the Declassified missions. Guys, let's bring that up on the studio in here in studio for folks at home. Tell us about the Declassified missions and what that means.
Yeah, so declassification system is a completely new system specific to the primary campaign of Gears of War Judgment. It's an optional system. So what you saw was that crimson omen on the wall indicating it's available to you, and there's 40 plus of these available to you
throughout the campaign.
Throughout the primary campaign.
Okay.
And these declassifications do 3 things. One is they change the rule set. So what you're seeing right here is that reduced visibility and the enemies are meleeing you.
They are rushing right in on
it. Because this player's opted into it. The second thing that it does is it increases challenge, and so you see the star system on the top left where it's counting up your kind of performance. Well, if you opt into the declassification system, it gives you a star multiplier, so you earn more stars, which in turn means you get a whole bunch of additional content. You unlock additional content that way. And the last thing that it really does is it changes the way that the story is told. And the idea that you know, Kilo Squad is being judged through a tribunal, well, the declassification system will change the story. If you don't opt into it, you'll just hear the normal testimony. But if you opt into it, you're going to hear a change in the testimony, a change in the VO about, hey, this is what really happened during that period.
And you mentioned something interesting there, is that Barrett's giving his testimony, and you're actually playing that out as the story progresses, right?
Exactly. As you play through and as you're giving your testimony, you get to play as the different characters giving their testimony. So you're going to hear the judge say, hey, we asked you to do this thing, and you went off, but it went horribly wrong. Recount to me exactly what you did and why.
Now, I want to get back to the declassified missions here. Tell us about some of the different variables. We're seeing, obviously, there's a fog here, kind of like we have in the studio, and some short-range weapons. But what are some of the other variables that players are going to encounter in the game?
Yeah, you'll see these environmental effects like fog or smoke. Some of them limit the weapons that you have available to you that you have to use to get through the mission. We have time-based ones, so having to get through it in a certain amount of time. We might throw a different set of enemies at you, like an additional set of a certain type of enemy. They really do change the game quite a bit. And what's great, like Alan said, they're optional. You can try it with it, and then with our system, we have a really easy way to go back and just replay a chapter. So maybe you can go try it without it. Maybe you thought you just want to see how it goes without it.
Now, you guys have played them all. I want to ask you each one. What's your favorites, Alan?
The timer-based ones are a lot of fun because there's already this sense of intensity and urgency, and it's just amplified.
Right.
When you know that the smart spawn system is trying to adjust to you, and now you have a timer restriction on top of that, it's really intense.
All right, there you go. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, actually, the one we're watching is one of my favorites. You get this dusty room, and it's really hard to see. And so it changes the way you play the game, especially the way I play the game. I tend to be a little bit more further back, and I like to shoot the guys. And now all of a sudden I can't see, and they're right in my face.
They're rushing at you.
Yeah, I have to change the way I play the game, which is great.
Now, what happens if I don't want to opt into this? You just keep going. How does that impact?
Yeah, you know, you'll still get the main story, and you're still going to play through. You're just not going to get that additional challenge, and you're not going to get that a little bit of additional storytelling to kind of help flesh out the full thing for you.
Sounds great. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on Xbox Live for this world premiere live event. I know it's been a whirlwind tour for both of you. Any final comments for the fans?
Excited to get the game out on March 19th. You know, I want to get on. I want to play. Overrun for me is just so exciting, so I want to get on there and play with a bunch of fans and see how it goes.
Yeah, I can't wait to see everybody online on March 19th.
Well, we're looking forward to that. Before we go, though, there's just a matter of our Twitter giveaway, including several copies of the game and, of course, the custom Gears of War Judgment console. This console isn't being sold at any store, and there are only a handful of these in existence. You guys know that, right?
We're not even getting one.
Now, the selected winners have been finalized. Congratulations to Twitter HawkPride88, Michael Trapani, and thank you everyone else. Keep your eyes out for a direct message on Twitter to see if you won a copy of the game. It's been incredibly exciting to bring all the Gears of War Judgment news directly to the Xbox Live community with tonight's show. If you tuned in late, don't worry. We will be offering a video on demand version of the show in just a few minutes. We'll also be debuting a special behind the scenes look at Domination, the brand new multiplayer mode exclusively on Xbox Live. We'll leave you now with another look at our world premiere for Aftermath. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on Judgment on March 19th.